Welcome back, everybody. The Center for the Less Good Idea will be hosting Sounding Pictures, live scores to short silent films, the second iteration of its Collation project, conceptualized and led by the Center's Impresario, Neo Muyanga. This is a short, focused series of performance-based events around a central theme which emphasizes on the medium of silent films. Now, this program follows on from the hugely successful Collation visual radio plays series, and Neo Muyanga joins us now in studio this morning to share a bit more on this season's offering. Neo, very good morning. Thanks for joining us. Welcome.
Thank you. I'm glad to be back with you.
Indeed, it's an absolute pleasure having you back. Now, let's talk about this season. Silent films. I'm still trying to grapple, and wrap my head around how a silent film looks and sounds like. What's this season all about?
Well, the era of silent films was a century ago. The turn of the 20th century, where film starts. You didn't have the capacity to record voices or performances together with the moving picture. So you had the moving picture and you had title cards to tell you a bit of the chapters of the story. So in effect, the audience member is participating in making up the rest of the storyline.
Okay.
So your perception was very important in how you saw the film unfold. There usually was a live performer, usually on a piano, playing to the score, but they were watching while the audience was there watching them. So what we're doing...
What's the average length of the film?
They could be any length. They started off sometimes were short, but they could be any length. I've seen some that are about an hour long. There are some that are as short as 5 minutes.
Okay.
People like Buster Keaton, Charlie Chaplin were very famous for making those kinds of films. Okay. You can still find them on YouTube.
I may not have seen it, but make me understand, how can one comprehend a silent film? I mean, where does the silence feature? Is it in the perspective of music, like there's no music, or there's no audio? Like, how does it sound?
The characters that are performing, that are acting, are silent. So you can see their voice, you can see their mouth moving, but you cannot hear their voice. Okay. But it's choreographed movements.
What's the point of that, though? I'm trying to understand. What's the point of that? Seeing the lips moving, but I'm not actually hearing what they're saying.
You're very much a person of the 21st century, I can see. You are insistent on it. The point was, that's where film started, and they didn't have the capacity to do both film and sound. So as the technology evolved, they could have a track that was visual and a track that was sonic sound.
Okay.
But to develop that technology took a while. So in the beginning, it was just one track, and they chose to have it be visual.
Okay.
Because there were also records that were being made, shellac records and things like this. So you had audio that you couldn't see, and you had visuals that you couldn't hear.
Okay.
And then when you put them together in an auditorium, then you had a live performer. But what we're doing today, what we're doing at the center, is trying to refer back to that history and to reflect from the 21st century to say we are now a society that is so used to seeing films that are full of sound, bombs, action going on, and dialogue, and just trying to think about the arc of storytelling and what that has shifted. And effectively, if you have a film, for example, we have some of the films we'll show that are about 3 minutes long, 3 to 5 minutes long. You have the opportunity to play that film a second time, and in the second iteration, you produce a different score to it. And the experiment for us is what changes in your understanding of the story if the sound, if the score shifts and changes?
That's a good question. I mean, how do you understand a story when there's no elements that are always associated with a film? I mean, if there's no music element, if there's no subtitles even, and there's no audio, like how do I consume the film effectively?
Well, the subtext lives inside of either the sound design or the music. So the way people could understand in earlier periods is the sound tells you a lot. It gives you clues about what you feel. In soundtracks that we have today, when they use huge string arrangements, that gives you a huge emotional swell. I was saying to you earlier, do an experiment for yourself. Watch a horror film, but turn the volume off and tell me if it's still a scary film.
Not at all.
It can't be.
Not at all. Because music influences the perception.
Yes. It's music and sound design.
Right.
Because music is what happens tonally between instruments based on using a scale.
Okay.
But sound and sound effects have become such a big part of filmmaking.
But then how do I understand the transition from one scene to the next?
This is the experiment. When we're on the floor, what we're proposing is the shifts will start to occur inside you as well as on the screen, because you're watching the performers. Most of the time, the performers will be seeing that film for the first time in front of that audience. So the performers are on a knife edge. They may not know what comes in the next scene, but they have to read it quickly and shift tact. As they do that, my suspicion is that shift is happening inside of us as audience members as we're watching.
Okay.
But that's what we are trying to experiment, and we want to experiment with an audience there.
So, Neo, am I correct to opine that this film or this series actually, every audience needs to strike a particular resonance, like it's in an abstract format, that everyone needs to strike a certain resonance to it and a certain understanding to it?
Some of them will seem abstract because some of them are animation films.
Okay.
Some of them are realistic films with actual people being filmed.
Okay.
We're also using a technology called the Pepper's Ghost, which is a 19th century technology for making holograms. So you can see a live actor, a live performer, entering the same dimension as a film that comes from the archive of 100 years ago. So we're experimenting how you can be in the same platform, on the same dimension, with people who were living a century ago, making sound, making performances, making movement.
Okay.
So the look of it is quite eerie in a way.
Right, right. And I understand you'll also be in conversation with Bronwyn Lace and Johnny Brenner to mark the new collection of marigold beads in collaboration with the Centre, right?
Yes, Johnny and Bronwyn have been working on a selection of beads that are specially made for the Centre, so we'll be launching those also. Bronwyn will be hosting that conversation. It'll be in the afternoon, in the lead up to what will be the film series later that evening.
Just paint a picture of how the season, or rather the series, will be. So there's going to be an audience, right?
Yes.
Watching the films.
There's a live audience.
There's a live audience,
there are
right?
2 rooms that have been curated to reflect the mood of the silent film. One room is a big projector, and the live ensemble is on either side of the screen, and they are playing to the film. So they're watching the film and playing live, and they are investigating what is unfolding in the story. The audience is sitting around them, so in effect, the audience will be watching the performers watching the film.
Okay.
And that's how you're getting your story alive.
All right.
In the second room, you have the Pepper's Ghost, where you have this half-mirrored technology, where some performers are performing with an archival set of images, and live music is being played to that as well. Okay. So you can see all of these effects happening. It looks quite high-tech, but in fact, it's very low-tech to make.
All right. Now, lovely chatting to you. Thank you so much for joining us. You've aroused so much curiosity. Share more details.
Please come. You have to come and see it.
Yeah, sure. I will check out the YouTube, but I definitely want to see this.
No, you have to come physically.
Yes, I definitely want to see it. Please share more details, briefly.
Well, you can find more details at www.lessgoodidea.com.
Okay.
The bookings are open now. We are in Maboneng, Arts on Main.
Okay.
We would love to welcome you there.
All right. Lovely chatting to you, Neo. Thank you. Well, we just spoke to Neo Muyanga as the Centre for the Less Good Idea explores the medium of silent films.